Spoilers for The World Ends With You.
Yo, it's me, Pundit, welcoming you to a new video. Today, we're talking about The World Ends With You, a nifty little game about working with your friends to try and kill God. You know, most RPG things. But what if we throw friendship in the trash and try and kill God on our own? Let's begin.
Before we begin, I need to lay down some important information. The World Ends With You, or TWEWY, sees you controlling Neku Sakuraba, an edgy teenage boy who lives in the middle of Shibuya, Japan, participating in the Reaper's game. In order to win the game, he must partner up with another player to survive a week of challenges. You fight enemies called Noise with psychic powers that come from pins. Partners will help Neku in combat and, depending on the version you play, are activated by using certain commands like tapping, swiping, and dragging your finger across the touchscreen. The rules for the run are as follows. Partners can't deal any damage. If you do, you must reset to the last save point. Fusions are legal. Normal difficulty or higher must always be used unless otherwise stated. The Neku Solo win cards appear at the end of every fight. We are playing the solo remix version of the game for multiple reasons. It's easier for me to record, and I wanted to take the solo and let Sam to an extreme. Now, the quest is, can you beat The World Ends With You without using your partner? With all that out of the way, we can now finally begin. Week 1 introduces us to our first partner, and making problems where you would not expect. You see, I was streaming it on Twitch, and let's just say Solo Remix has some audio problems. The game doesn't let you control the audio in-game, so people had to deal with extraordinarily loud music, or no music at all, because the game would also make the music disappear after a cutscene. Speaking of cutscenes, those also didn't exist, as Solo Remix deemed them unimportant and tossed them into the void. Besides all the technical errors, the first day went off without a hitch. Neku meets his first partner, Stalker, and learns how to kill frogs with psychic powers. Now, Stalker here can punch things with her stuffed pig by tapping them. Because of this, tapping as a command input is effectively off limits, and with so little pins available, that will be a big problem for the early part of the game. On day 2, Neku gets a wider variety of pins, which are very important and very bad. They offer a wider variety of moves, but at the cost of being awful at damage, because it's literally the beginning of the game. I used Shockwave, Force Rounds, and Pyrokinesis as they were the best options to work around Stalker deciding to hit things. Also, we fought some pigs which gave us money, killed some dogs, and killed the first boss of the game, the Metal Core Hog. The Core Hog went down without a hitch due to our pro gamer skills, and gave us our first good pin, Ice Blow. But then day 3 happened. Where do I begin with day 3? For one, it's one of the hardest days in the entire run. You meet at 777, gain access to shops, learn how to do a fusion, and learn about memes from Beat and Rhyme. Or characters you met yesterday, but I couldn't fit them in the script, so I'm introducing them now. But none of those make this day impossibly hard. No, that honor goes to its boss, Vespertillo Canor. This stupid bat. Let's talk about this bat and why it's impossibly hard. The fight would normally go like this. You send Stalker up to upper plane by tapping the invincible bat. The upper plane contains mostly smaller bats for covering lights. Clear out the smaller bats and the big bat suddenly becomes vulnerable for a short amount of time. New bats appear up top, and repeat. There are many issues with this we had to overcome. Namely, taking Stalker up to the higher realm, killing the bats up at the higher realm, and killing Vespertillo Canor in a short amount of time. Thankfully, the first issue can be dealt with by the fact that punching the bat doesn't deal any damage, so we can keep the Neku Solo win card. The second issue can be dealt with by the most powerful weapon in our arsenal, the Fusion. Fusions are when Neku and his partner team up to deal a screen-wiping amount of damage instantly. Typically, you do a fusion by building up sync with cross combos, when you and your partner gang up on an enemy. You can't do that because that requires using a Stalker, and that's not very funky. Thankfully, you can build up fusion by eating an unhealthy amount of food. That leaves us with issue 3, killing the bat fast enough. You'd think that would be easy. It's not. You have around 6 or 7 seconds to kill the bat. It has 800 health. Our pyrokinesis did 18 damage per hit. That's not nearly enough. Thankfully we had Ice Blow which did decent damage, but it's still not enough. So I had an idea. Neku's attack doesn't increase by leveling up. In order to increase attack, Neku needs to eat food and wear clothes. In order to digest food, you need to do a certain number of fights that relate to the size of the food. The only food that increases Neku's attack at this stage in the game is miso ramen, which only raises Neku's attack by 1. The downside to miso is that you can only eat 2 per day, as Neku will become full and only have space for smaller food. Thankfully, ice cream exists which raises Neku's bravery by 2 and is small enough for Neku to eat as many as he wants per day. Bravery is the stat which determines which clothes you can wear and the best clothes in the 120 range. Neku starts off with around 17. Here's what my game plan was. Grind Ice Blow to the point where it will evolve into Ice Risers, a better version of a pen. Eat 2 miso every day, then chow down on as much ice cream as Neku can handle until we reach 126 bravery. And so, I started to grind, and 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 until finally we reached the point where I felt confident I could beat it. I had 22 attack. For reference, Neku starts with 10, and 126 bravery. I was wearing the ribbon mini hat, plum blossom, beach sandals, and blonde wig. I was as ready as I was ever going to be. I went into the boss room and needed to take lots of damage in order to get the attack increasing ability of the ribbon mini hat to activate. Launched the Stalker up to the higher plane using a low-level fusion to limit the healing effect. And finally, started wailing on the bat until finally...
Yes! We did it! We did it! The stupid bat is dead!
With Vespertillo Canor finally dead, we could continue the run and never worried about another bat again. Since day 3 took up so much time, we're going to be fast for the next few days. Shopping is actually introduced today. Neku gets called a spicy tuna roll, and Ryan gets dunked on by a street shark. He then kills said street shark for dunking on Ryan. On day 5, Neku learns how to be a creep around teenage girls. Besides that, we went shopping, killed a bear, and learned we were dead the whole time from a man with a ram on his crotch. On day 6, we extend capitalism's grasp by telling a man how to be hip with the mid-2000s youth. We also make Neku go incredibly slow by wearing the red skull pin and talk to Stalker about her issues. On day 7, the last day, we have 2 boss fights, Cornix, Canor, and Ramcroc from earlier. Cornix is relatively easy, with only difficulty spawning from the screen crashing in the middle of the fight. After that is the Game Master Ramcroc. Ramcroc is a stationary boss who can deal massive damage. He can become temporarily invincible by eating Neku's attacks. It's typically a somewhat difficult fight, but being partnerless doesn't change much, which means we were able to defeat him. And with that, the game is over. We beat every challenge and... Wait a minute. The script is still going. There's more?
Week 2 is because instead of Neku being able to stop being dead, he just gets to play the game again. The main difference between week 1 and 2 is that Neku doesn't get to be with Stalker anymore. Instead, we get to be with Pretty Boy. Pretty Boy is our easiest partner due to his command being a down slash, a movement which is rarely used. Besides being Pretty Boy, we meet the Game Master Show who does math a lot, and also Obliterator Rhino. You know, the usual stuff. On day 2, round 2, we get introduced to a new threat and game mechanic, Taboo Noise and 10-Pin Slammer. Taboo noise is a special type of noise which takes barely any damage unless you do cross combos, which are off the table because they're parties from your partner. The first taboo noise you fight are two kangaroos, which gave me a scare because I was worried they would actually be unkillable without using Pretty Boy, but thankfully I was eventually able to erase them. 10-pin Slammer is basically Straight Smash from Smash 4 on 3DS, but cooler. You use the deck of pins you've been using to knock out other pins, and each pin has different specials and it's the whole thing. But more important than 10-pin is the 10-pin pins, which are some of the best pins we can use so far. So after introduction of 10-pin and losing a contest like a complete loser, we unlock 10-pin Custom, an amazing pin we can use for the rest of week 2. We then proceed to gaze upon Joe's pile of trash and pass out. On day 3, Pretty Boy lies to us to fulfill his agenda, so we end up going to Cat Street to get our phones upgraded with the tracker. We then meet Pete, who became a Reaper for plot reasons, and after running around him for a while, we managed to get away scot-free. We then head up to Ramadan to find out that ramen drama is happening, so we gotta put an end to it. Turns out the man who wanted to be hip with the youth opened up a trendy ramen shop to distribute more red skull pins, and the owner of Ramadan is suffering because of that. So after learning some hip memes, we solved the issue by telling the owner of Ramadan to make simple ramen and strive forward. Day 4, we get to play detective and break a rule. You see, you have to go on easy mode to pass the wall, but I made an exception in opening rules that said, unless otherwise stated, we wouldn't go to easy. This day is why. But going to easy shows why I decided against going on easy, as by doing so, the TWEWY Solo win card won't appear at the end of the fight. So technically, if you want to consider the run over because we had to go to easy and the card didn't appear, then sure, the run is over. But if you don't, then we can continue on and talk about the day. On the day, we solve the case of the missing microphone for 777, survive another beat fight, and then buy the entirety of San Francisco. Twice. Day 5 is one of the most important days of the run for one reason and one reason only. This day you can get 10-pin thrift, which I'll explain about later. The day itself starts with clearing a wall that requires you to use a lot of D plus B pins to make it the most popular brand in the area. This was annoying, but we had ice risers, so it wasn't that bad. After that was a lot of walls which I had to give ramen to a guy, do a quiz show, and dress in all Rat Walmart clothes. But after Rat Walmart holds the key to success in this run, 10-pin thrift. In order to get the pin, you need to beat 10-Ho the Reaper and 10-pin Slammer, and because I was cocky and didn't realize 10-pin thrift was useful at the time, I decided I was going to win by doing nothing. Thankfully I won and got the pin. 10-pin thrift lowers Neku's health, but boosts attack and experience. On its own it seems somewhat useless, but with clothes that increase attack when Neku is in mortal peril, it becomes one of our best tools in our arsenal. Once we were past that wall, I spent far too long trying to kill crabs, only to figure out I had to shake my device for the pins we were given to activate. I had to reset during that fight. It was stupid. The rest of the day consists of 2 fights that run on timer, so we just wait them out. On day 6, we fight a lot of taboo noise, and by a lot, I mean 3 required fights. There's one at the beginning of the day, so we slog through that fight. There's one fight that's optional, but you can let the person fend for themselves and die. You know, normal angsty teen things. Sadly, we're forced to help one person fight taboo crabs, but he ends up dying as well. Then there's the final fight of the day against 2 Baileys, which, like all taboo fights, are possible, but take a while. Here it is, day 7, the final day. This day scared me because the boss fight for this day is against Taboo Noise, but I'm getting ahead of myself. In order to get to the Game Master show, you need to use pins of a certain brand to climb a tower. Or you can be cool and use some branded pins and do the same thing, which is exactly what I did. I used 10-pin Screw, Force Rounds, Pyrokinesis, 10-pin Golem, and 10-pin Thrift to clear out the special floors, and all that was left was Show. Let me explain the Show fight as it intimidated me for many reasons. Show will start off by throwing a bunch of Taboo Noise which you have to defeat. He will then enter the fray himself, in which there will be Taboo Noise trying to kill you as well. Then to top it off, Show becomes a Taboo Noise himself known as Leo Cantus. After he's mission the whole time, he's teleporting everywhere, cause he's teleporting everywhere. I equipped my good pins and went at him, and lost epically. I had 10-pin Thrift equipped, which lowered my health, so I decided instead of trying to deal lots of damage quickly, I would try to have lots of health, but deal less damage.
I also gave Pretty Boy a shirt that would heal Neku so I wouldn't have to worry about my health as much during the fight, so I replaced Tenpin Thrift, and with all my health, I was slowly but surely able to defeat Sho. Or so I thought, as Pretty Boy then sacrificed himself to deal the final blow in a cutscene we couldn't see. And with that, the World Ends With You partnerless run is...
So Zeta slow!
Wait. It's not over? I left some foreshadowing unfulfilled? And so I need to do another week of the game? How hard could it be?
Week 3 starts off with more technical difficulties, this time not with the game. The software I was using to stream gets decided not to work, so I ended up pre-recording everything from this point onward. Besides that, this week decided to make there be no other players in the game, which, considering our challenge, would be great. But Beat decides to come along and rain on our parade by partnering with us and stopping the Reaper. Big problem though, Beat is incredibly trigger happy. Beat will activate when you drag your finger across the touchscreen, but the game decides that he should also go when you hold your finger down. This leads to a lot of misfires with Beat, but that's not the worst part. Beat also automatically locks onto nearby enemies and attacks them, even if you aren't touching the screen, which means if you accidentally summon Beat, he's definitely going to attack something. But that's enough about Beat. The day itself contains 2 pig noises which are vital as they drop Tektite. Tektite will let you buy the Goth Bondage Coat, which is the best item we can get in this run due to it giving us an insane attack boost. With all that out of the way, we get to Week 3, Day 2. And what a day it is. This day. You know how I said Week 1, Day 3 was one of the hardest days? The reason I didn't say it was the hardest was because this day exists. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The day starts off with the Game Master Konishi kidnapping Beat's noise companion. We sell off most of our leftover pins and do a bit of shopping. And after a brief shopping spree, we get introduced to this week's new fun mechanic, random encounters. They're more of a slight nuisance than a major problem. We then find ourselves at La Pen Angelic, the location of the Goth Bondage Coat, only to find out we're missing some of the items we need to get the coat. We're missing a sleek silk and a vampire dress. Thankfully, we could buy the dress at the shop, but the silk proved much harder to get. You could buy a sleek silk at Rat Walmart, but you need a 10-yen pin. But before I realized it, I made a grave mistake. I had bought an extra pin slot absentmindedly, which used up our precious Tektite, making the coat unobtainable on this day. But I hadn't noticed it yet, so I spent a lot of time looking at how to get a 10 yen, which thankfully I was able to buy. Then I realized I did a major oopsie and accidentally blocked myself from getting the coat. So I decided to just continue with the story and see what happened. I fought 777, gained access to the concert stage. Now here's the kicker. The boss of this day is a harder version of Vespertillo Canner from Week 1. Named Petropus Canner! They brought back this stupid bat with 5 times the health! That's right, this thing had 4,000 hit points, and we still only get 6 seconds to kill it. So, I try to kill it with what I have, only to learn that as soon as Beat goes up to the higher realm, he starts automatically attacking the bats up there, which means as soon as we send him up, we immediately need a fusion. So, I tried again, and realized I was nowhere near beating it, so I realized what I had to do. More grinding, and a bit more strategizing. I broke the space-time continuum in order to get more food. I started looking at all my pins to see which would work best. I started to grind and grind, 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 and grind until finally I was ready. My final attack was 65. My clothes were the King Pendant, Sun Emperor, Biker Jacket, and Ribbon Mini Hat. My final deck was 2 Aqua Monsters, Ice Risers, On Mayo, 10-pin Thrift, and Self-Found Others Lost. All pins which could safely be used without triggering Beat. I then started the fight. Yes! 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 Wait! 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 I had finally defeated Petropus Tanner, by far the hardest fight in the game. Guess what? It's time to speedrun through some days because I made the last segment way too long. If there's anything important, I'll talk about it normally still. On day 3, we get to play tag without knowing we're playing tag. We also finally pick up the goth bondage coat, making us finally fulfilling our dream of hitting like a truck. We also learn that Rhyme was Beat's sister, and she was the noise companion kidnapped by Konishi. We then fight Uzuki, lose once, then beat her. On day 4, we do a breakout room with more fighting animals than a typical breakout room. We see the red skull pins getting more popular. We then wrap up the day by fighting Toki. Beating him on our first try, only to fight both Toki and Uzuki, lose an ungodly amount of times, then eventually beat them. Aren't we glad a harder version of that fight doesn't happen? On day 5, we learn that the red skull pins are brainwashing Shibuya. We get to fight a horde of Reapers, which should be an annoying fight if only fusions didn't exist. We then wrap up the day by doing one of the hardest fights in the normal game, being Berserk Koki and Uzuki, which were actually way easier than their normal fight due to Neku being able to use a fusion on them. Day 6 consists of walking to Cash Street and walking back. That's it. Also show returns, but this one with funkier tattoos. This fight consists of losing because it's a viable strategy, and that's how the fight's supposed to go at this stage of the game. Here it is, the final day. The day starts off with us going to the station underpass and going to the Shibuya River, the place Pretty Boy was trying to get to with a cracker. We then talk to Sho and find out that Konishi was hiding in our shadow the entire time, and she wants to fight us in her noise form, Tigress Cantus. Before we talk about her fight, let me explain how her fight typically goes. Tigress Cantus consists of 4 phases. Phase 1, we need to lure Taboo Noise into a white void to make her vulnerable. Phase 2, we fight her and her shadow, but we only fight her to deal damage. Phase 3 is the thing that makes this fight interesting. It consists of a mandatory fight with your partner as he steals all your pins. Phase 4 consists of hitting with Noise Rhyme. Now on the surface, this fight seems impossible. How can we get past that phase? Well, if only I had made a video on it beforehand! Either way, the plan is to use a fusion to get past the phase. Therefore, we never have to use Beat. So I started the fight against Tigress, and all went according to plan. I did phase 1 without a hitch. When I started phase 2, I got her as low as I possibly could in order to make the fusion successfully skip that part of the fight. I then used the fusion and successfully skipped the phase, and out the final blow with Noise Rhyme. Now here's the problem. Neku Soloin didn't appear at the end of the fight. Neku Soloin will never appear at the end of the fight. During all my tests, I was never able to get it to appear. I never used Speaker in the fight, but the card didn't appear. I believe that's because the fight intends to use Beat for phase 3, and that's physically impossible to get a Neku Soloin card at the end of the fight, even if you do what would typically classify as a Neku Soloin. Since we didn't get the card at the end of the fight, the run should technically be failed, but since it's physically impossible to get it, I decided to continue. Especially since the game is almost over. So after Tigress, you pass the wall that stops all saves past that point. You also meet up with Stalker, who's just chilling there for an unspecified amount of time. After meeting up with Stalker, we nab Show's hat as he got crunched under a pile of garbage by an unknown force. We then walk into the Dead God's pad and start the beginning of the end. They fight Megs, the conductor of the game. His fight is tough due to his stance, being able to freeze time, and him brainwashing Stalker, but we were able to beat him first try. With Megs down, he gives us the most powerful pin in the run, Lightning Rook. We then equip Lightning Rook and head to the final fights, Anguis Cantus and Draco Cantus. Anguis consists of 2 phases, one with Stalker and one with Beat, so make sure you equip pins that will work for both. But slight issue. I accidentally used Stalker, making me restart from the previous autosave from before we met Stalker in the river. So, we try Megs again, and have a much more difficult time with him, so I decided to grind up a fusion to use against him, and successfully beat him. Again. You then redo the Anguis fight This time, not using Stalker or Beat. The fight is brief thanks to Lightning Rook, thankfully. After Anguish is defeated, Pretty Boy shows up out of nowhere and fuses with Megs. They then proceed to trap Beat and Stalker in bubbles, and the final fight against Draco Cantus begins! There's only one issue which isn't actually an issue. The fight is meant to be Neku only. They kidnap your partner so he effectively gets to the final fight as usual, hiding in a corner and shooting with Lightning Rook. So we do exactly that. Then the final fusion button appears. With the press of the button, the run is officially over. The question of can you beat the Whirlwinds with these solo rings without using your partner is yes. But also no. All depends on your definition of beat. If beat means getting the card at the end of each fight, then this run is a failure. Tiger's Cantus in the fight on easy mode show us that it's impossible. But if you consider beat to mean never letting your partner do damage, then yes, this run was a success. What do you think? Is this run a success? Is it a failure? Tell me in the comments down below. And if you want to be really cool, you can join my Discord server, Brainy Cat Cafe. The link will be down in the description. I'll also link the raw footage of the run down below as well. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and also share this video around. This took a while to make, so the more people that see this, the better. I'd like to thank everyone who supported me along the way, namely everyone who showed up to the streams and the people who suffered my ramblings on Discord, specifically Agent Random from Random HQ Switch and Wolfstorm3303. I'll link their channels down in the description. With all out of the way, that's all from me. Have a beautiful day.